She closed her eyes to die, but a cowboy changed her fate, white heavy check mark. From a very young age, she had faced challenges that most people could never imagine. Her childhood had been filled with arguments, neglect, and a sense of not belonging anywhere. She had grown up feeling invisible, as though the world could carry on without noticing if she disappeared. Her parents' marriage had ended when she was 10. Her father left without a word, and her mother buried herself in work, leaving Emma to navigate life alone. School had not been any easier. Some classmates were kind, but many were cruel. She had endured teasing, bullying, and the loneliness that came from being different. She learned early on that showing weakness invited more pain, so she kept her feelings locked away, sharing them with no one. As she grew older, life's burdens only increased. After high school, she tried to build a life for herself, moving to the city in search of opportunity. But the city was big, loud, and full of people who didn't notice her struggles. She had taken every odd job she could find, cleaning, waiting tables, delivering packages, but nothing seemed to give her satisfaction or security. Her savings were small, and every month felt like a battle against an invisible weight pressing down on her. Emma had also experienced heartbreak in love. She had fallen for someone who had promised her the world but only delivered lies. The betrayal had left her with a deep scar, one that made it hard to trust anyone again. Every relationship that followed seemed to crumble under the pressure of her fears and the shadows of her past. She felt trapped in a cycle of disappointment, unable to find joy or comfort anywhere. That night, as the rain poured down outside, Emma felt the weight of everything pressing on her chest. She had spent hours thinking about her life, and the truth was undeniable: she was exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. She had tried to hold on, tried to believe that things could get better, but each small hope had been crushed, leaving her with nothing but darkness. She looked around her tiny apartment, a space that had always felt cold and empty. There were no pictures on the walls, no memories of happier times, because there had never been many. The furniture was simple, functional, and bare, much like her life. The room smelled faintly of rain and old carpet. Emma's heart ached with the loneliness that had become her constant companion. Tears began to fall, silently sliding down her cheeks. She felt a heaviness that made it hard to breathe. The thought that had been lingering in her mind for days now became clear and undeniable. She wanted to escape. She wanted the pain to stop. She wanted everything, the fear, the sadness, the constant disappointment, to end. The idea of giving up seemed like the only way to finally feel peace. Emma moved slowly, almost mechanically, as she prepared herself. She didn't want anyone to hear, didn't want anyone to find her before she could leave the world behind. She thought about her life and all the missed opportunities, the failures, the loneliness. Each memory was a sharp reminder of why she felt she had no place in this world. It all seemed too much to bear. She closed her eyes for a moment and remembered the rare times she had felt happiness. There had been a few fleeting moments. Summer evenings when the sun painted the sky in colors she couldn't name. Laughter shared with a friend who had since moved away. The warmth of a stranger's kindness when she least expected it. Those memories were beautiful, but they were also painful because they reminded her of what she had lost, of what she felt she would never have again. As the rain tapped against the window, Emma took a deep breath. She imagined herself stepping out of her life, leaving all the hurt behind. It was terrifying and freeing at the same time. She thought about the silence, the calm that she imagined would come once she closed her eyes for the last time. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe it could bring relief, a release from the storm inside her heart. But even in that dark moment, there was a small part of her that hesitated. A tiny voice whispered, asking if perhaps things could change, if perhaps there was still hope somewhere in the world. She pushed the thought away, telling herself it was weak to hope, that she had no right to dream of a better life. The voice persisted, though soft but persistent, like a candle flickering in the wind. Emma's mind wandered back to the few times someone had shown her genuine kindness. A neighbor who once offered her a smile when she looked particularly sad. A coworker who had complimented her work, making her feel seen for the first time in a long while. Those moments were small, almost insignificant, but they lingered in her memory like sparks in the darkness. She shook her head, trying to dismiss them. She didn't feel worthy of kindness, not anymore. The rain outside intensified, each drop hitting the roof like a tiny drumbeat echoing the turmoil inside her. She felt trapped, alone and forgotten. The world continued moving, unaware of her suffering, and she felt herself slipping further into despair. Every thought seemed to circle back to one conclusion. There was no way out, no solution, no light at the end of the tunnel. And yet, just as she was about to surrender completely, something made her pause. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. A sound, a feeling, a presence she couldn't explain. She opened her eyes and glanced around the room, her heart racing. For the first time in hours, she noticed the rhythm of the rain, the way the wind moved the curtains, the faint glow of the streetlight outside her window. It was ordinary, simple, and yet it felt different somehow. Emma didn't know it then, but this small moment of noticing, of being present, was the beginning of a shift. A shift that would lead her away from the edge of despair and towards something she hadn't imagined was possible: hope. She had closed her eyes to the world, ready to give up, but life had not finished with her yet. The night was far from over, and Emma still felt the weight of her pain, but something deep inside stirred. It was faint, like the whisper of a breeze through a closed window, but it was enough to make her hesitate. She didn't know it yet, but the story of her life was about to change, and the first step had been taken simply because she had paused, because she had noticed the world just for a moment before surrendering completely. And in that pause, in that quiet moment amid the rain and darkness, Emma unknowingly opened a door to the possibility that she was not yet alone, that there was someone out there who could see her, hear her, and change the course of her life forever. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of birds singing outside her window. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and crisp. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, creating a pattern on the floor that seemed almost magical after the darkness of the night before. She rubbed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling slightly lighter than she had the day before. Somehow, the world seemed a little less heavy, though the shadows in her heart were still present. She went through her morning routine almost automatically, brewing a cup of coffee and staring out the window at the quiet street below. Life felt slow and still, like it had paused for a moment, giving her a chance to breathe. She didn't know it yet, but this quiet morning would mark the beginning of a change she had not expected, a shift that would slowly pull her from despair toward hope. Later that day, Emma decided to take a walk. She had always found that moving, even just a little, helped her think more clearly. The streets were calm, with people going about their daily routines. Shops opened, children played in the distance, and neighbors greeted each other with smiles. Everything seemed ordinary, yet Emma noticed a subtle warmth she had not felt in years. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to observe the world rather than feel trapped by it. As she walked, she entered a small, quiet park at the edge of town. The park was simple, with a few benches, a small pond, and tall trees swaying gently in the breeze. Emma found a bench near the pond and sat down, watching the water ripple under the sunlight. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the calmness settle over her. It was peaceful here, and for a short while she forgot the weight of her problems. Then she heard a sound, a soft, steady voice calling out. "Excuse me, miss, are you all right?" Emma opened her eyes and saw a man standing a few feet away. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in worn jeans, boots, and a plaid shirt. A hat shaded his face, but his eyes were kind and gentle. There was something about him that felt strong yet comforting, as if he had been through challenges but had emerged steady and unbroken. Emma felt a sudden surge of unease. She wasn't used to anyone noticing her, let alone approaching her with concern. She wanted to look away, to pretend she wasn't there, but something in the man's gaze made her pause. I'm fine," she said quietly, though her voice trembled slightly. The man nodded slowly. "You don't seem fine," he said. "Sometimes a little talk helps. I'm Jake, by the way." His tone was calm, without pressure or judgment. Emma didn't know why, but she felt a flicker of curiosity. There was a sincerity in his eyes that made it difficult to turn away. She hesitated but finally said, "I'm Emma." She barely knew why she had answered, but a part of her wanted to connect, even just for a moment. Jake smiled gently, not pushing, just sitting on the bench nearby. He seemed patient, as though he understood that she might not speak much and that trust would need to be earned. For a few minutes they sat in silence, listening to the soft rustling of leaves and the distant laughter of children. The silence was comfortable, not awkward, which surprised Emma. Usually, silence made her feel anxious or exposed, but with Jake, it felt safe. Finally, he spoke again. "Sometimes life feels heavy. I've been there myself. You don't have to carry it all alone." Emma felt a lump in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, acknowledging her pain without pity or judgment. She swallowed hard, unsure of what to say. She had spent so long hiding her feelings, convincing herself that no one could understand, that no one could help. Yet here was someone who simply offered understanding and presence. Over the next hour, they talked quietly. Not about anything too deep at first, just small things. A bird landing on the pond, the way sunlight reflected on the water, the gentle sway of the trees. Emma found herself relaxing, feeling a sense of normalcy that she hadn't experienced in years. She laughed softly when Jake made a light joke about the ducks fighting over breadcrumbs, and it felt foreign yet wonderful to hear the sound of her own laughter again. As they continued talking, Emma began to share a little more about herself. Not the deepest pain yet, but small pieces of her story. She mentioned how she had moved to the city to start over, how her jobs were hard but necessary, and how she sometimes felt invisible. Jake listened intently, nodding and occasionally offering words of encouragement. He didn't try to fix anything or offer empty advice. Instead, he just listened, and that alone made Emma feel lighter. The more they talked, the more Emma realized that Jake had also faced his own struggles. He spoke of working on a ranch, the long hours, the hard labor, and moments of loneliness. But through it all, he had learned resilience and the importance of kindness. Hearing his story made Emma feel connected to someone who truly understood the complexities of life, the hardships, the small joys, and the ways people keep moving forward even when it feels impossible. By the end of the afternoon, Emma felt a strange warmth in her chest. It was unfamiliar, almost foreign, but it was comforting. She had not expected to meet anyone today, let alone someone who could make her feel seen, even for just a little while. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jake stood up and offered his hand to help her up from the bench. "It was nice meeting you, Emma. I hope we can talk again sometime," he said with a gentle smile. Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I'd like that," she said quietly. She felt a small spark of hope, a tiny but important shift in her perspective. For the first time in what felt like forever, she imagined the possibility that life could be different, that there might be someone who could walk beside her, not ahead or behind, but beside her. As she walked home, Emma replayed the encounter in her mind. She had not realized how much she had missed genuine human connection until that afternoon. Jake's presence had been simple, yet profound. He had not judged her, had not forced her to open up, but had instead allowed her to exist as she was, and that had been enough to make her feel alive again. That night, Emma sat by her window once more, but this time, the darkness felt less overwhelming. The memory of Jake's kind eyes, his gentle voice, and the way he had simply been there lingered in her mind. She thought about how small moments could change the way she felt, and she realized that perhaps she didn't have to face life completely alone. The following days brought more encounters with Jake. Sometimes it was a brief chat at the park. Other times he would stop by her favorite coffee shop just to say hello. Each interaction was gentle, patient, and consistent, and each time, Emma felt herself opening up just a little more. She began to smile more often, laugh more freely, and even look forward to the small routines of life again. Emma also started to notice the beauty around her that she had long ignored. The sound of children playing, the smell of fresh bread from a bakery, the way sunlight hit the pavement in the early morning. These small details reminded her that life had moments worth noticing. Jake never pushed her, never demanded that she change overnight. Instead, his patience and presence allowed her to heal at her own pace. Through these interactions, Emma began to feel a sense of trust she had not experienced in years. She realized that trust did not have to be given all at once, and that connection could grow slowly, like a small plant breaking through the soil. She started to believe that people could care for her without expecting anything in return, and that realization was both freeing and terrifying. By the end of the week, Emma felt a subtle but undeniable shift in her heart. The despair that had been her constant companion was still there, but it no longer dominated her every thought. There was now a glimmer of hope, a feeling that life could be different if she allowed herself to believe it. And at the center of that hope was Jake, a stranger who had become her first real connection in years, showing her that kindness and compassion were still possible. Emma didn't know what the future held, and she didn't try to predict it. But she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: possibility. Life could be different, and perhaps, with patience, care, and connection, she could find the strength to face each day without fear. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned soft shades of pink and purple, Emma stood at her window and whispered to herself, maybe life isn't over yet. It was a quiet declaration, almost like a secret promise, but it was the first step toward change. She had closed her eyes to the world before, ready to give up. But now, for the first time, she felt the possibility of something more. Someone who cared, someone who saw her, and a life that could be worth living again. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself thinking about Jake more often than she expected. At first, she tried to ignore it, telling herself that he was just a kind stranger, someone who had shown her a little warmth and nothing more. But she couldn't deny the way her heart felt lighter whenever she knew she would see him again, even for a brief moment. Slowly, she realized that she was beginning to trust someone again, something she had thought impossible. One afternoon, Jake invited Emma to visit the ranch where he worked. At first, she hesitated. She had never been around farm animals or open fields, and the idea of leaving her small, safe routine terrified her. But there was a quiet courage building inside her, a desire to step out of her comfort zone and experience life beyond the city streets she had known for so long. After a moment of thought, she nodded. "I'd like to," she said softly. The next day, Emma followed Jake to the ranch. As they drove, she couldn't help but notice the landscape changing. The tall buildings of the city faded away, replaced by rolling hills, open fields, and endless sky. The air was fresher here, filled with the scent of earth, grass, and animals. Emma felt an unexpected calm wash over her as she took in the view. It was beautiful in a way she had almost forgotten existed. When they arrived, Jake introduced her to the ranch and the animals that called it home. Horses neighed softly in their stalls, cows grazed peacefully in the fields, and chickens clucked as they pecked at the ground. Emma felt a mix of wonder and nervousness. She had never spent much time around animals, but their presence was soothing. They didn't judge her, didn't expect anything from her, and that simplicity was comforting. Jake guided her through small tasks at first, feeding the chickens, brushing the horses, checking the fences. Each activity was new to Emma, and she was surprised at how satisfying it felt to contribute. She began to feel capable, useful, and even proud. Jake watched her quietly, offering guidance without criticism. He celebrated her small successes with encouraging words, and for the first time in years, Emma felt a sense of accomplishment without anyone putting pressure on her. As the day went on, Emma and Jake found themselves sitting on the porch, sipping cold lemonade and watching the sun move across the sky. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with the gentle sounds of the ranch. Emma realized that she had not shared her thoughts with anyone in so long, yet with Jake, speaking felt easy. She began to open up slowly, telling him about her fears, her past struggles, and the loneliness that had haunted her for years. Jake listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. When she finished speaking, he nodded thoughtfully. "Emma, you've been carrying a lot on your own," he said gently. "It's okay to let someone help. You don't have to do everything by yourself." His words were simple, but they carried a weight she hadn't expected. For years, she had told herself that asking for help was weakness, but hearing it framed as strength made her feel understood for the first time in a long while. Over the next few weeks, Emma continued visiting the ranch. Each visit was a step forward for her, not just physically, but emotionally. She learned how to care for the animals, how to fix small things around the property, and how to appreciate the rhythm of life outside the city. Each task, no matter how simple, brought her a quiet sense of satisfaction. Slowly, she began to believe that she was capable of more than she had thought. Jake and Emma also spent time talking about their dreams. Jake spoke about his love for the land and his hope to one day expand the ranch and care for more animals. Emma shared her own long-forgotten dreams of writing, traveling, and helping others. As they talked, she realized that dreams didn't have to be impossible. They could start small, take one step at a time, and grow with patience and effort. One afternoon, as they sat near the pond, Emma noticed the way Jake's eyes reflected the sunlight. There was a warmth in his gaze that made her heart race. She felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, a fear of being hurt again, and an excitement at the possibility of connection. She realized that she had not allowed herself to feel this way in a long time, and it both thrilled and terrified her. Their conversations often drifted to lighter topics, too. They joked about the clumsy antics of the animals, laughed at small mistakes they made while working, and shared stories from their childhoods. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in years, and the sound of her own laughter felt like music she had almost forgotten. Each moment with Jake reinforced a feeling she hadn't known was possible: joy. As trust grew, Emma began to share deeper parts of herself. She spoke about the times she had wanted to give up, about the nights she had felt completely alone, and about the fear that she might never find happiness. Jake never flinched or looked away. He simply listened, offering support and understanding without trying to fix everything immediately. That patience made her feel safe, and slowly, she allowed herself to believe that she could be vulnerable without being judged. One evening, after a long day at the ranch, they sat by the fire pit. The sky was painted with stars, and the night air was cool but comfortable. Emma found herself speaking freely, telling Jake about her dreams for the future and her hopes for a life filled with purpose. Jake encouraged her, reminding her that even small steps forward mattered, and that progress was worth celebrating, no matter how slow it seemed. As the days passed, Emma began to notice changes in herself. She felt stronger, more confident, and more capable of facing life's challenges. Her thoughts were no longer dominated by despair. Instead, she began to focus on small, achievable goals. She discovered that she could find beauty in simple things, and that joy could exist even amidst hardship. The darkness that had once consumed her was no longer the center of her life. It was a shadow that could be acknowledged but not allowed to define her. Jake's presence had become a constant source of comfort. He didn't demand her attention or affection. He simply offered support and companionship. Emma began to realize that love and care could exist without strings attached, and that she could accept kindness without feeling undeserving. This realization was both freeing and empowering, allowing her to take steps toward healing she hadn't thought possible. One afternoon, Emma helped Jake repair a broken fence on the edge of the ranch. As they worked side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, she felt a sense of connection that went beyond words. She realized that trust and closeness were built gradually, through shared experiences, understanding, and consistent support. Each small task, each shared smile, and each quiet conversation strengthened the bond between them. Emma also began to notice that she was looking forward to the future. She imagined writing again, exploring new places, and building meaningful relationships. The fear that had once paralyzed her was slowly being replaced by courage, a willingness to try, to risk, and to hope. She knew that life would not be perfect, but she had learned that she could face challenges with resilience, and that she didn't have to do it alone. By the end of part 3, Emma had undergone a remarkable transformation. She was no longer the woman who had closed her eyes to die. She had discovered strength, courage, and the ability to trust and connect with another human being. Jake's steady presence had shown her that even in the darkest moments, compassion, patience, and understanding could ignite hope. Emma realized that healing was a journey, not a destination. It would take time, effort, and continued support, but she was ready to embrace it. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that her life could be meaningful, that she could find joy, and that she could love and be loved in return. And so, with each passing day, Emma stepped further away from despair and closer to a future filled with possibility. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she had found someone who could walk beside her through them, someone who believed in her, cared for her, and had shown her the first true glimmer of hope in a life that had once felt hopeless. The days at the ranch had grown warmer, and Emma was beginning to feel a sense of belonging she had never known before. She had settled into the rhythm of life there, helping Jake with chores, feeding the animals, and enjoying the simple beauty of the open fields. The laughter, the hard work, and the quiet moments under the wide sky had started to heal the wounds that had weighed on her for so long. But life, as it often does, was about to test her in a way she had not anticipated. One afternoon, while Emma was helping Jake mend a fence on the far edge of the property, she noticed dark clouds gathering quickly in the distance. The wind picked up, rustling the trees and sending leaves tumbling across the fields. Emma paused, glancing nervously at the horizon. "Jake, that doesn't look good," she said, a hint of worry in her voice. Jake squinted at the sky and nodded. "It's coming fast. Looks like a storm is rolling in. We should get the animals back into the barns and secure everything else." There was urgency in his tone, but it was calm and controlled, the kind of steady presence Emma had come to rely on. She felt a flicker of fear, but also trust that Jake would guide them through whatever was coming. They hurried across the ranch, Emma carrying feed while Jake led the way to bring the animals inside. The first drops of rain began to fall, and soon the storm was upon them. The wind howled through the trees and lightning flashed across the sky. Emma's heart raced as she realized just how vulnerable the ranch and they themselves were to nature's sudden fury. As they worked to secure the last of the animals, a loud crash echoed across the fields. Emma looked up to see a large tree branch had broken off and was leaning dangerously toward the barn. Her stomach sank. "Jake, that branch," she began, but Jake was already moving toward it. Without hesitation, he grabbed ropes and began securing the branch to prevent it from falling. Emma watched, torn between fear and admiration. Jake's bravery and quick thinking kept the animals safe, but she couldn't shake the worry that something could go wrong. The storm raged harder, the wind whipping around them, the rain soaking through her clothes. Emma's fear spiked as she realized that the situation was more dangerous than she had imagined. Suddenly, a loud crack rang through the air. A tree near the pond had been struck by lightning and split in half. Emma gasped, stepping back in shock. Her heart pounded in her chest, and for a moment she froze. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly everything could change. The panic she had once felt in her darkest days threatened to rise again, but she gripped the railing of the barn and focused on Jake, who was calmly giving instructions and keeping everything under control. "Emma, stay close to me," Jake shouted over the roar of the wind. His voice was firm but steady, grounding her amid the chaos. She ran to his side, feeling both fear and a strange sense of safety in his presence. Together they moved from task to task, securing the barn doors, moving animals to safer pens, and checking fences that the wind had loosened. Emma's hands were shaking, but she refused to give in to panic. She had learned strength and courage over the past weeks, and now she had to use it. At one point, a frightened horse broke free from its pen and bolted across the muddy field. Emma's heart leaped into her throat. Without thinking, she ran after it, calling its name and trying to calm it down. Jake joined her, and together they guided the horse back to safety. The storm lashed against them, rain soaking through their clothes, but Emma felt a surge of pride and determination. She realized that she could act, that she could face danger, and that she was no longer the same person who had once closed her eyes to give up. After what felt like hours, the storm began to subside. The wind eased, the rain turned to a gentle drizzle, and the clouds slowly parted to reveal a pale sun breaking through. The ranch was battered but intact, the animals safe, and Emma and Jake standing together, exhausted but relieved. Emma sank to the ground, her body trembling from the adrenaline and fear. Jake knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "You did well, Emma," he said quietly. "You stayed calm, you acted, and you helped keep everyone safe. I'm proud of you." Emma looked at him, her eyes brimming with tears. She realized that this was different from anything she had ever experienced before, someone seeing her strength, acknowledging it and believing in her. In that moment, she felt a deep connection, a bond forged not just in calm moments but in the fire of adversity. As they walked back to the main house, Emma reflected on the storm. She had faced fear head-on and had not run away. She had acted, made decisions, and contributed to the safety of the ranch and the animals. And through it all, Jake had been there, guiding her, supporting her, and showing her that courage and compassion could exist side by side. That night, as they sat by the fireplace, Emma felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The storm had tested her in ways she had not imagined, but it had also revealed the strength she carried inside her. For the first time, she saw herself not as a fragile, broken person, but as someone capable of facing challenges and protecting others. Jake noticed the thoughtful expression on her face and asked, "You're quiet. Thinking about the storm?" Emma nodded, her eyes meeting his. "I never thought I could do something like that. I never thought I could face something so frightening and not run away." She paused, her voice soft. "I feel different now, stronger somehow." Jake smiled gently. "That's because you are, Emma. Strength isn't just about being unafraid. It's about facing fear and choosing to act anyway. You did that today, and that makes you stronger than you realize." His words sank deep into her heart. For the first time in years, she truly believed that she could face life, with all its unpredictability, and still find her footing. Over the next few days, the ranch began the work of recovery. Trees that had fallen were cleared, fences repaired, and animals tended to with extra care. Emma threw herself into the work, finding satisfaction in helping restore the land. Each swing of the hammer, each patch of repaired fence, reminded her that she could rebuild, not just the ranch but her own life. She was learning that life's storms, though frightening, could be survived, and that survival could lead to growth and strength. Through it all, Jake remained by her side, offering guidance and encouragement, never taking over but always supporting. Emma realized that this partnership was a reflection of what she had been missing in life, someone to walk with her, to face challenges together, and to share both the burdens and the joys. She felt a deep gratitude for Jake's presence, and her heart opened a little more to the possibility of love and connection. One afternoon, after the work was done, they stood together on the porch, looking out over the fields. The air was clear, the sky bright, and the sun warm on their faces. Emma felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced fear, acted with courage, and come out stronger on the other side. And through it all, she had not been alone. Emma realized that life would always have storms, both literal and metaphorical. But she had learned that she could face them, and that she didn't have to do it alone. She had strength she hadn't known she possessed, and she had someone by her side who believed in her. That belief, that unwavering support, had the power to change everything. As the sun set, casting golden light across the fields, Emma turned to Jake and smiled. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything, for being here, for believing in me, for just being you." Jake smiled back, his eyes warm and steady. "You don't need to thank me, Emma. You did this. You faced the storm. I just walked with you." In that moment, Emma felt a sense of gratitude and hope she had not felt in years. She understood that challenges would come, but she also knew that she had the strength and the support to face them. For the first time, she truly believed that her life could be filled with courage, resilience, and the possibility of happiness. The storm had tested her in every way, but it had also revealed something essential. Emma was no longer the person who had closed her eyes to give up. She had survived, she had acted, and she had grown stronger. And with Jake by her side, she realized that her future, no matter what challenges it held, could be brighter than she had ever imagined. The weeks after the storm passed slowly but meaningfully. Emma had changed in ways she hadn't even realized at first. Each day brought small victories, a fence repaired, a garden tended, an animal comforted. But these tasks now carried more than practical purpose. They were a reminder of her resilience and her ability to create order from chaos. Every day she felt a little stronger, a little braver, and a little more alive. Jake remained a constant presence in her life, steady and kind. He never pressured her, never demanded more than she could give, but he always encouraged her to grow, to trust herself, and to embrace life fully. Emma had come to rely on his presence, not out of neediness, but because he reminded her of the good in the world, the beauty in human connection, and the strength she possessed within herself. One morning, Emma stood at the edge of the pasture, watching the sun rise over the rolling hills. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. She felt a calm she had never known before, a sense of peace and belonging that seemed almost magical. She realized that this peace had not been given to her by anyone. She had earned it through courage, effort, and the willingness to open her heart again. As she turned to head back to the ranch house, Jake was waiting on the porch with a warm smile. "Morning," he said simply, but there was a softness in his eyes that made Emma's chest feel light. She smiled back, feeling warmth spread through her. For a long moment they stood together, comfortable in silence, the world around them alive with color and sound. In the following weeks, Emma began to think about her future more seriously. She had always dreamed of writing, of telling stories that could touch others' hearts. The thought of pursuing this dream had seemed impossible for years, buried beneath layers of fear, doubt, and despair. But now, with a sense of stability and the confidence she had regained, Emma felt ready to take the first step. She started small. Each morning, before the chores or the work on the ranch, she would sit by the window with a notebook and pen. She wrote down her thoughts, her experiences, and the lessons she had learned from the hardships she had endured. Writing became a form of release, a way to process the emotions she had carried for so long. Slowly, the pages filled with words that reflected her journey, from despair to hope, from fear to courage. Jake watched her with quiet admiration. He never interfered or judged her writing. He simply offered support when needed. Sometimes, he would sit nearby, reading a book or caring for the animals, and Emma would glance up at him with a smile, grateful for his patient companionship. In many ways, his presence was like the gentle backdrop to her life, steady and reassuring, giving her the freedom to grow. Emma also began to build connections with others in the community. She found joy in simple acts of kindness, whether it was helping a neighbor with chores, sharing fresh produce from the ranch garden, or volunteering at the local animal shelter. Each act reminded her that life was not only about survival, it was about connection, compassion, and making a difference, however small it might seem. One afternoon, as Emma and Jake tended to a group of young horses, she felt a surge of gratitude for the journey she had taken. The memories of her darkest days, the nights she had closed her eyes to give up, felt distant, almost unreal. She realized that she had come a long way, and the path ahead, though uncertain, felt full of possibility. The fear that had once paralyzed her was replaced by hope, determination, and a quiet confidence in her ability to face whatever came next. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden light over the fields, Jake turned to her with a gentle smile. "You've grown so much, Emma. I'm proud of you. You've faced challenges, learned to trust, and found strength you didn't know you had." Emma felt her heart swell with emotion. She had learned to believe in herself, and hearing these words from someone she trusted and respected was a validation of her journey. Over time, Emma's bond with Jake deepened. They shared long walks in the fields, quiet evenings by the fire, and countless moments of laughter and conversation. She found herself looking forward to each day, excited to experience life fully, rather than simply surviving it. The connection she had with Jake was built on trust, respect, and mutual care, something she had never allowed herself to imagine before. One day, Emma decided to share her writing with Jake. She handed him a notebook filled with pages that told her story, her struggles, her fears, her journey through darkness, and the hope she had found. Jake read quietly, turning each page with care. When he finished, he looked at her with eyes filled with pride and warmth. "Emma, this is incredible. Your words, they're powerful. They show strength, courage, and hope. You've turned your pain into something beautiful." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She had spent so long thinking her life was meaningless, that her experiences had no value. But now, seeing her story reflected in words that mattered, she understood that her journey had purpose. She realized that her past, no matter how painful, had shaped her into someone capable of compassion, resilience, and love. As the seasons changed, Emma continued to grow and thrive. She took on new challenges, exploring creative projects, helping others, and building a life filled with meaning. Her confidence blossomed, and she discovered that she could face life's uncertainties with courage and grace. Each day was an opportunity to embrace possibility, to learn, and to connect with the world around her. The relationship between Emma and Jake evolved naturally. It was not rushed or forced, but built gradually through shared experiences, mutual respect, and deep understanding. Emma learned that love was not about perfection or grand gestures, but about consistent care, support, and trust. With Jake, she discovered a partnership that allowed her to be herself fully, without fear or pretense. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the hills, Emma reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the night she had closed her eyes, ready to give up, and marveled at the journey that had followed. Life had tested her in unimaginable ways, but through patience, courage, and the support of someone who believed in her, she had found hope, strength, and joy. Emma turned to Jake and took his hand, "I never thought life could feel like this," she said softly. "I never imagined I could feel happy, safe, and loved." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "You deserve all of it, Emma. You've earned it. You faced the darkness and found your way through, and now the world is yours to embrace." In that moment, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude and peace. She had learned that life was not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with courage and resilience. She had discovered that connection, kindness, and love could transform even the deepest pain. And she understood, more clearly than ever, that her life was now hers to shape, filled with hope, purpose, and endless possibility. Emma's journey was far from over, but she no longer feared the future. She had learned that even in the darkest moments, hope could emerge, strength could be found, and life could be beautiful again. With Jake by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next, confident in her ability to face challenges, celebrate joys, and live fully. The ranch had become more than a place of work. It was a symbol of her transformation. Each tree, each field, each animal represented the strength, patience, and courage she had discovered within herself. She understood that life's storms would continue to come, but she now had the tools, the mindset, and the support to navigate them with resilience and grace. In the quiet moments, Emma often sat by the pond, watching the water ripple in the sunlight, reflecting on her journey. She felt a sense of wonder at how far she had come, from closing her eyes in despair to opening them to life's possibilities. She realized that her story was no longer defined by fear or pain, but by hope, courage, and the connections she had nurtured. And so, Emma embraced her new life fully. She pursued her dreams, helped others, nurtured her relationship with Jake, and found joy in both small moments and meaningful achievements. She had closed her eyes to die once, but now she opened them every day to live, with purpose, hope, and love. Her life had been changed not by magic or luck, but by her courage, her willingness to trust, and the unwavering kindness of someone who believed in her when she could not believe in herself. Emma had discovered that even in the darkest times, a single connection, a single act of kindness, could change the course of a life. And with that understanding, she stepped confidently into her future, ready to embrace every sunrise, every challenge, and every opportunity with an open heart and a spirit full of hope.